Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, wherever you are. Today is the November 26th, 2025, and this is yet another Grow community meeting. Uh, we do have a code of conduct that summarizes to be nice to each other. And yeah, with that, let's get started. Today, I'm gonna be your host, and as always, we need a note taker. Who's gonna volunteer for taking notes? All right, Jacob, thank you for volunteering. We next is we start by welcoming any new members and attendees, and I already see two new members in here. Um, I think I recognize one from GitHub. Please, hey, Alex and Clara, when I come say hi and tell us what you do and what you do with Crown.
Hi there. Yes, very happy to join from Spotify. My name's Alex, based in the UK. At Spotify, we're very excited about the Crow project, and we are starting to use it. So yeah, very excited to be here. I'll let Clara introduce herself as well.
Yes, hi, super excited to be here too. I'm on the same team as Alex, and so I'm also working at Spotify. Um,
Nice, awesome. Well, welcome to you both. Excited to have more people joining us. Um, and next we want to talk about project news and updates. We did cut 0.7.1 yesterday, and a lot of folks, okay, maybe I think it's good and not good at the same time. I think a lot of folks are thinking we have collections, but unfortunately we don't. It's not the collections release, but we do have a bunch of features, bug fixes, and things that are stabilizing Pro. We felt the need to make a cut at least to unblock a lot of the folks that are using Pro in production today. And yeah, the other reason is like a lot of folks ask why is it a minor and not a patch? Well, the one of the main reasons is that we have technically a breaking change in the Helm chart on the flags. So if you're using Crow in a special way that is not really like Helm charts or like deploy the manifests manually, you might like see some issues. So we made it a minor at least. And yeah, that's it. That's the main thing. I would say this minor release is heavily focused on bug fixes and stabilizing the core more than anything else. Any questions or any person that audio like is running it in production? Please explain with it. Uh, Personally, I haven't. I haven't like installed 0.7 on my cluster, but I've already got some feedback on it from some other folks, and it's doing quite well.
No more panics. That much I can say. So
Yes,
that was an issue.
no more reasons to panic anymore.
Yes.
Literally. Uh, all right, sweet. I think with that we can go to the next thing, which is okay, project news and updates. Do we have any news regarding Crow? Anything that happened this week? Um, Either at KubeCon, after KubeCon, before reInvent. If not, I have one to share. I'm gonna share a link in here. So where is it? Oh, and it is. So Jesse Butler did a recording last week or like 2 weeks ago at KubeCon with the new stack. So I'm sharing a link in here, and there Jesse will talk a lot about Crow and Carpenter. So there's a lot of Crow in there. So it's cool to. I did watch the video. It was very nice. So yeah, exciting stuff. And if anyone want to go watch it, it's pretty nice. Yeah, more crew, more good, please. Yes, I love your notes, Jacob. That's great. Other than that, other than the release and the YouTube video, I don't really have any other news. So with that, we can go directly to recurring topics.
Sounds good.
And that means I have to share my screen and we need to talk milestones. So I need to create a new milestone 0.8 since now we tagged 0.7. Pin this one somewhere in December. I think it's feasible. No, no pressure. Just 26th of December. And with that, I need to move everything that we did not close in 0.7 to 0.8. All right, so since we made the release, I'm just gonna close this milestone in here, 0.7, and we can talk about 0.8 in a bit. The main focus for 0.8 or what used to be like 0.7 is collections. We do have a proposal for collections. It's called CREP 00.0002. If I do. I'm gonna share a link on Stack in here, but for folks that don't know, collections is the equivalent of, well, you can see it as the equivalent of for loops in Helm chart. I'm gonna search it in the chat. So basically being able to create a collection of resources or a number of resources without really having to duplicate the same definition multiple times. It boils down to something like this. All I want to do is a for each, and I want to create 3 pods instead of one, and you'll have a template where you could use like the for each variables. And yeah, without really diving very deep into the proposal, that's what I think the major thing that we wanted to do next. Any questions, comments?
Without nipping, does range 1.4 actually produce 3 pods or 4 pods?
3 pods, like because in.
Okay, yes, we're gonna have to talk about this one a lot, but okay. I just feel like yes, yeah, I know.
We always love making things complex in programming languages. Like not starting with 0 and never finishing.
I just wonder if that, okay. All right, let's hope we get users that like that approach.
Someone corrects me if I'm wrong, but I think in Python this would create you give you 3 elements. Like it will not like get to the last element. It's excluded.
It would give you a list or iterator from 1 to 4, if I recall correctly.
Let me give it a shot.
It did 1,
Yeah,
2,
so
3
1,
for
2,
me.
3.
1, 2, 3. It doesn't go to the last element.
Is it X range? I'm just like, I just worry that we're gonna spend a lot of time on this. Let's see. Nope, X range does not work. All
That's
right.
another crow community meeting.
Pure madness.
Any questions about anyone that did get to read through the proposal or? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Thibaut.
Well, we could make it clear and say we'll range 0 to 3, and then that's it, right?
Yeah, you could do 0 to 3. It stands from 0 and end at 2.
I
Yeah,
guess the main thing
programming
we
language
need,
things.
no matter what you like or not like about these ranges, is a review from other approvers. We will need to get the crap in, and that's the thing to focus on for 0.8. We need more definitive approvals or a request for changes to progress this. That's important.
I think when we talked about this a while ago, I mean, it was like 3-4 weeks back, you said that you were going to revise this document based on like some feedback you had gotten. Have you done that? Like, are you still planning on doing that? Or is it in a state where like it's good to go, like good to review again at this point?
No, I still need to iterate on the proposal, basically incorporate all the feedback that I think everyone agreed on. There's like a few things that we have everyone aligned, and then there is some parts where we have less alignment, I would say. So I need to at least like minimize, or at least like make the proposal more smaller and more focused on collections rather than collections, and also targeting things like rollouts and a few other topics that I'm trying to address in this document.
So I mean, I guess
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we might have been about to ask the same thing, Jacob. So, I mean, what's the call to action for the community? Like, I mean, we still maybe want some reviews even on this doc, even though you are planning on making some changes, like more reviews is still needed, or do you want people to wait until you've made the update?
I think both work. Like if anyone want to go and review the PR and mainly like contribute to the conversations that are already initiated in there, I think that's helpful. Regardless of whether like I update it or not, there are some interesting conversations in the collections doc that need more opinions and more attention from the community.
I think what I mentioned recently in the ADR, in one of the ADRs that Alice opened, is also something we should look at here. I think it would be very beneficial to these scraps if they would at least outline a rough impact on the current implementation, and not just on the user-facing change and not just on the interface change. I think you mentioned a few times to me while we were talking that the impact could be rather small. I think this is something that is also worth mentioning in the proposal, because I think it will help us actually plan ahead and implement for it. Because I think you plan to merge the crap ahead of time, right? Yeah, so in that case, it would be probably beneficial to let people know, hey, this is really not something else than, I don't know, extending the node definitions or something with a follow or something like that, right? Like without going now into detail.
Yep, correct. I'll make sure that this is closed by, I think, early December. Then get to an implementation while like the proposal is I mean, could evolve in parallel. That's completely fine. And again, we are still in V1 Alpha 1, so if we get things not perfectly. We can still get them in V1 beta 1 and V1, so that's completely okay. Yeah, other than that, I believe we have a few things in here. I think probably the most important one after collections is aggregated APIs or aggregation APIs. Like we've seen a few problems with Crow working with the aggregated APIs. Basically, they look like CRDs, they're not CRDs, but if the service is down behind the scenes, Crow is not able to work with that properly. So that's something we want to fix in 0.8. And I would say probably this is more important, the resource lifecycle modifiers. And I know Ellis had a few thoughts on this topic before. But basically, how do you instruct Crow to adopt existing resources or to release resources on the lead? Like I have I'm managing a database with Crow. I don't want Crow to delete it before shutting down the instance of the LGD. So how do I do that? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Ellis.
Yeah, sorry, I was just in the car, so I was very silent before. But this strikes me as something that absolutely needs a crep. And I think I'm just kind of thinking pragmatically on when we think about introducing this relative to the collections work. Like the way that I view a lot of the open creps, like some of them are orthogonal, but like your collections crep is a prerequisite to the two creps I've written, the one on propagation control and the one on decorators. I think that this is very deeply related to the mechanics, but maybe orthogonal, but just like from a like we could talk through some of these ideas, but I'd almost rather figure out are there any other open questions on collections that we need to hash out, and points of disagreement on collections that could be hashed out before kind of getting to this more complicated, or not more complicated, but to this, I would say slightly less important to me. And also just combined with the fact that there isn't a crep for this yet.
Yeah, this one will need a crep. I fully agree with you. For new folks, for crep, we mean Crow enhancement proposals, and to not confuse with the creps. Yeah. Anyone wants? I mean, I see Barney is assigned in here. Is Barney in this call?
Since he's not here, how do we reach out in general? I think we should give him a ping on this issue.
Yeah, we would love to have an owner for this issue. Justin, can you help us with that please, since your colleagues?
Yeah. You would like him to what? Sorry.
To let us know in the GitHub issue or on Slack what's the plan for resource lifecycle modifiers.
Okay, cool.
Because
he's a signee, right? So currently the expectation is that he comes up with follow-ups for this issue. So if he doesn't, then the issue will go stale.
Okay. Are we? We're thinking a crep, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That seems actionable.
And I think we also had Alice mentioning that this might push out to 0.9, so we may want to do that already.
By the way, I think it would be good to create a 0.10 milestone to avoid while we're
all right, we are looking far into the future. I like it. Why not?
Well, just because I don't want people to think that after 0.9 comes 1.0, right?
Of course. No. You're completely right.
All right, cool. We have 3 milestones lined up right now.
Yeah, the only thought, and not to be too premature on before we have a crep on this, but one of the thoughts I was discussing with Amin that might be worth sharing with this community is this idea of reference counting. And that I think we've, like in other languages, like in ACK or in various other IAC tools, there's kind of these ways to adopt and to adopt into, or to retain, I guess, maybe the two main primitives here. One of the thoughts I was playing around with Amin is like, could you almost do this invisibly, where if, like, for example, you created an object with Terraform and Terraform was able to create a reference, and then you also create an object with Crow. Crow sees that there's already a reference, adds another reference, and then essentially, if you're not the last reference, you don't delete it. And if you are the last reference, you do delete it. And you might be able to get some of these like shared ownership semantics somewhat invisibly. And I don't know if this is possible across different frameworks, but within the context of moving a resource from one RGD to another RGD, you might be able to just kind of have a zero interface version of this feature.
Just for note keeping, sorry, is this already documented somewhere in a crep or something? Just so that I know what to even write on this.
No, definitely not. And I'd probably defer to Barney on it, but just while we were talking about it, that was something that Amin and I had whiteboarded in my office at one point.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Although, I mean, I know from like the ASO Azure Service Operator experience, there's like almost a chicken and egg problem here, where if you have like a controller that's managing something and actively reconciling it like Crow, if you want to hand off ownership, including reconciliation to some other thing, like you almost don't want there to ever be two owners, because then there's an opportunity for them to fight with one another. Like you kind of want to release one and then let it exist in the ether unmanaged for a second and have another one pick them up. And if you're doing ref counting and the ref is at 0, then do you delete it at that point? So there might still need to be a way to facilitate that sort of handoff.
What if you could guarantee it, like let's say each writer computes a hash of their write and includes that with the reference. And so then you could detect, okay, there's two references, but we disagree. So, each system's going to throw an error. I think generally when these migrations are happening, like both the intent of the user is to have both systems agree during those migrations, and it's like an accident if they don't agree.
It is, yeah, it definitely is an accident if they disagree.
I will say that we have ownership references in the field managers. So technically something could work through the field manager, because the field manager is owned by the API server and that can act as a single source of truth. But it would need some exploration for sure. All right. Do you want some dedicated feedback on this, Alice, or should we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, let's move on. I just wanted to kind of toss it out there, but it's not,
that's
not
fair.
in any way formalized.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and I guess if Barney decides he doesn't want to move forward with it, I'd be happy to take on that proposal, but I won't, I would wait for him.
Yeah, I will maybe write that down. That was for the resource lifecycle modifiers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? It's a shame that Bruno is not here today. You might have seen the PR on leveled apply. So I just want to shout that out as something that's worth taking a look. Currently, as you know, we have a single apply set that is running in the instance reconciler, and we push all resources in an ordered manner into this apply set. But this causes a few issues, namely that you have problems with concurrently leveling out different independent subgraphs. So that's why Bruno set up this grep. I encourage you to take a look at it. I think it's rather important because as of now, Crow's resource graph model relies on server-side apply and its pruning features to clean up resources in flight while we're not in deletion state. And I think that there's quite a bit of discussion still necessary and problem space finding. Mainly because the RGD that we had before server-side apply was all sequential. Now we move to server-side apply. Now it's all concurrent, and we need something in between. And this in-between state is still very much in flux. I think it requires quite some heavy work, also algorithmically and migration-wise, how we get there. So it's quite important for the project that folks have their look on this. I think the plan is that this goes a bit further now over the next few weeks, maybe lands somewhere in 0.9 or 0.10 even. And that will probably cause a refactor of the entire instance controller. So this is quite impactful. If you are interested in how Crow works internally, I recommend you to take a look. And I think it's not 003. Can you go in and edit the title, Armin? Because I think this was mentioned also before, but I think Bruno just didn't get around to it yet.
We name our creps overall. Sorry, like we number our creps. Because if you look at Kubernetes, for example, what they do is if you look at enhancement proposals, they don't number them by like incrementally the same way we do. For example, here like KEP 2033 4817, and typically those numbers, they are not random, they are not incremental, they are the number of the GitHub issues.
I mean, whatever system works, I guess, right? It's just I know that the one we have right now doesn't. So that's about where my knowledge ends, I would say.
I'll continue doing like the incremental right now. Maybe we can change it in the future, but now we have 2, 3, 4. This is supposed to be 5.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Yeah, it is indeed an interesting topic on how Crow handles how it manages the resources behind the scenes. There is an inferred order for sure.
There's a topic in here around lifecycle I don't know if it's lifecycle management, but tools like CloudFormation often let you control create before delete or delete before create. And often, if you're trying to do like a safe upgrade, you want to do create before delete and do some sort of like traffic flip and migration. But if you're dealing with a record that's unique, like let's say you're trying to make a mutation to a load balancer object and that load balancer object's name isn't changing, but maybe its IP is the only way to get it to the new state is to delete it and then recreate it. And so I think some of those assumptions need to be baked into how the DAG reasons about the ordering of deletes for pruned objects. And I probably need to add a comment on here about that, but I don't know. I think Crow's mental model right now is just clean up everything afterwards, which may not work for certain types of mutations.
Yeah, agree. I think the main thing that you mentioned also in this another grep that you really need to mention also here is the revision concept. I also put this on there, but I really think we need to push that. Sorry, Thibaut, I didn't see your hand. Feel free.
Yeah, sorry, I have my girl here, so it's harder to follow. But about this, probably there needs to be some protection, right, on deletion, because especially if you think about a load balancer, you probably don't want to delete the load balancer, even though it should be deleted to be updated, right? So you need to have some manual judgment or something to say, yeah, I approve that this load balancer can be deleted now because it will generate downtime. Right, so this whole update of immutable fields is something that needs to be that is problematic in terms of uptime and keeping everything working.
Yeah, wrote it down. Thank you. Yeah, I think the main issue that we have and that I have in general when I'm working with the instance controller, and maybe food for thought, and someone has a genius idea here, is that we currently don't really have a state A to state B comparison. So I cannot even do a DAG algorithm on comparison of the two states and evaluate them properly. I think until we have state A and state B comparison that is stable and that can be relied on, we have a problem, which is why I'm pushing so heavily on this revision. Because anything that is not a revision is not stable, right? So my view on the cluster is not stable, and then I cannot reliably compute a change graph from A to B. And that's like a super big issue for me. I don't think we can solve this like in 0.8, 0.7, but we need to start working on it. If we don't start working on it now, I think we will have an eternity without these problems solved.
Yeah, I brought up, is this documented anywhere else? It's a note in my propagation control crep.
Yeah, I wrote on that section. I love that you wrote it, but I really think it deserves like its own entire concept of just the revision tracking. I think you're completely right here, but we really need something separate on this that just tracks this revision, because getting this into CRO is a interesting challenge.
It's funny, I wrote propagation control because I realized that it was too large to fit into decorators, and realizing that maybe resource graph revision is too large to fit into propagation control. But yeah, this exact point of like how do you compare change over time and how do you handle these mutations? The second that you get into parallel updates to the DAG, you now need to reason about multiple parallel changes happening to the DAG at the same time. I could like throw an idea out here. Essentially, if you haven't read this idea of resource graph revision, each set of derived inputs to the graph, so anything in the spec, anything observed, would essentially snapshot. And that snapshot would result in the creation of a resource graph revision, which is the execution of the graph from all of those inputs. And the tricky part is for graphs that have like recursive inputs, this could result in a lot of revisions. But essentially the graph would, the reconciliation of the instance would actually be oriented around, instead of reconciling on the instance, you're really reconciling on the instance revision. And it's possible that you'd have kind of two of those going in flight, especially for DAGs that are very large, that take a very long time to propagate.
Yeah. It breaks my head just thinking about it. But yeah, needs fixing. Agreed.
Problems overall of like rollouts and revisions and graph diffin probably in Q1, which means probably 0.10 could be a good milestone for us to be like, hey, maybe by 0.10 we should have like solved at least a portion of those problems. Or at least start introducing the pillars or like the technologies that will help us like solve these problems. Like, will we have a new CRD that is purely managed by CRO called resource graph revision? Or will we have a sequence field or maybe config maps? I don't know. At least by 0.10, we should have those mechanics or mechanisms in place. which also like is tied to rollout. So Alice, I'm gonna tag your proposal propagation control to 0.10. At least temporarily. We can always like move it back or forward if needed.
Yeah, sounds good. In my view, I'd love to just get collections in because that's a prerequisite for a lot of this, or at least is what I'm thinking.
I think we all loved that, and then we had 3 bazillion panics and bugs come in. So yeah, I think we're still on that plan.
Like Jacob and I were fighting fires for the last 2 weeks. Probably.
Yeah. Sorry, not to criticize the speed of collections not being in yet. Mostly just saying that like before, I've been hesitant to even like POC any of my creps because I know the code base is gonna, look very different by the time collections is in.
And that's the part that I'm wondering about. So when I speak to Amin, that's not the case. But I mean, you can correct me here. I don't think the code base will be significantly different with collections in, right? That's at least what we have thinking of right now, right?
I think with the rework of the type check-in system, collections is going to be way easier to implement.
Yeah,
like now the way I'm seeing it is definitely 50% less code than the first implementation we've had. A lot of the things Crow does behind the scenes is type checking and doing static analysis of everything. And now static analysis is going to be much easier to do with the new system. So yeah, at the same time, I don't know. We'll see how things will evolve. If you guys want like collections by, I don't know, end of this week or next week, it is also feasible, but I don't want to like rush things out. Maybe we should let them like bake in little by little, slowly and surely.
What was the main point of contentions on collections? I mean,
I think it's mostly syntax, right? Like we were discussing mostly on user-facing syntax. It wasn't really about the idea of collections in general, right? At least that's my latest state that I have.
Yeah, I can talk about. I think that what you said, Jacob, is one of them for sure. The syntax, the one that I saw when I like probably flesh out with Fox here is the iterator concept. Do we want to have one iterator or multiple iterators in our for each? For example, in here, you can have like a for each that actually can loop over the regions and the zones, and which gives you basically a.
So now you have a matrix, right?
Yes, and you can have more iterators, and you end up with 3D matrices or 4D matrices. But I think Matt also talks about this somewhere here.
Yeah, I mean the only point that I was raising is that I think you could achieve multiple iterators by like cross-producting them together in Cell and then turning it into one iterator. And so if we wanted to just commit to doing one for now, you could sort of hedge on the fact that like everything is convertible to everything else, even if you've only got one.
Wait, so
I think the only thing
you're saying you can make a list of lists in Cell, and then just for each on that, and then for each within, like deeper in the template.
Yeah, so you basically like if you want to iterate over like 2 is a good example, right? Like if you have an outer and an inner, like I think if you zip them together, right, and you build like a tuple that is the every entry, then that's a single iteration over a tuple, and you can look at the items and do that. So it's the same thing. The only thing is I don't actually know how easy it is to do that zipping in Cell. And I don't know that the user experience is great, so I was just calling it out. It's an option. I don't know that it's a good option.
Cool.
I will say on that note that we should be careful that we have 2 systems here, right? So we have Cell and we have Crow. And if we use Cell and we say Cell is not good in that regard, we still have the option to extend Cell upstream or with a function, right? So that shouldn't be the defining argument here.
Yeah. I guess I was more saying if we're going to commit to doing this, and I think this was the point that I raised into my messages, I'd like to see like okay, if we're going to say you can do this in Cell, what does it actually look like to do it today in Cell? And if it's like horrible, then maybe we need to upstream something to make it not horrible. You're totally correct that you could write a zip function or something like that that made it not horrible. I just don't actually know if there is one that exists that we have available in Crow's like list of available functions.
Fuck.
So in a nutshell, I have two options in here. It's either I go the direction of making for each just like one element and relying on cell, or the other way around, opening for each to having multiple iterators in it, and maybe I could do some sort of validation where we do not allow more than one for each in the beginning and see how that will work out. I don't know.
I would suggest. Oh, sorry. I'd suggest for each implies one, and maybe we come up with a different. If we decide we need the matrix, if we decide we need to go into the matrix, maybe we come up with a different word. I'm with Matt. I think I personally think list of map is going to be the default type we should aim for, and we should figure out how to generate a list of map in Cell that isn't, see how bad it is. I think list of map will be a nice user experience because it will make the keys in the map easy, right? So it'll be like what is it? I can't remember. Each dot it'll be each dot region and each dot zone, I guess, or each dot item dot region and each dot item dot zone in the regions and zone example. Like if we assume that the map has zone and region in it.
There's also some contentions on like how to refer to the element of the collection in the middle of the template. And I know there's some like, you could hang it off of ID, maybe. You could like have a special term called each. You could have like I guess we could inject various like special things, or we could hang it off of existing concepts. I was curious, I mean, if you had like a direction you were leaning on that.
So for now, there are two ways of doing this. It's either we let users define the variable, or we use the each static variable. In this situation where we're talking about regions and zones, for each element in a collection that is named region, you will use region as the element that you're going to use to iterate on the collection. So when you're in the templating, like here inside the pod, you can see like, hey, you have region dot something or zone dot something. I believe this was someone else, but you could use like region dot element or region dot index. This is the whole idea of making it a list, is that we let users give them the freedom of defining the name of their variables. The other direction is that we just use each. So in this situation, you let each dot index, key value, and maybe length is not needed from my understanding the feedback. Personally, I'm leaning towards letting users basically define the name of the variables.
Does it have the advantage of like leaving it extensible in case you wanted to support multiple? The interface is weird if it's a list of one forever, and maybe you just like plan on accepting that for like, that's going to be something that you will answer for beta.
Yeah.
They'll go one way or the other, and you're essentially hedging your design choice with the multiple iterators approach.
I will say that the consensus that I wrote down now is that we want a single iterator. So that's the thing we should go for. That's what pretty much everyone here said now. So I understand the ability to extend it down the line, but I think the consensus that we discussed was that we can upstream a better version to do it in cell and be dynamic in cell itself and less in the specification in the RGD. So I think with that, that's the way to go. And for the instance name, I don't think we had a consensus yet.
I'm sorry, like, are you saying that the consensus is to go with one for each?
Yes. I'm happy to discuss if I caught that wrong, but that's how I noted it down now after what I heard from everyone.
Okay. Cool. That makes my life easier. I know what to do. All
Any
right, sweet.
opinions on the iteration instance name before we move on from that?
So if it's one, then it makes it actually like I can show you an example in here. If it's one, it will look like this. So basically, you have a resource called workers, which is a collection of pods. For each, we'll iterate on an array of workers. And in your pod template, you will use each item to get like the name Alice, Bob, and Charlie. And you can also have labels like worker index and total workers that you will access via the each element as well. So this will, for example, create 3 pods that are named Alice, Bob, and Charlie that are index 0, 1, 2.
You've coupled two things together here. One is you've coupled with one iterator, like suddenly you lose the ability to name it. Now it's called each. And
Yep.
in multiple iterators, we had a name, which was like zone or regions, right? So I guess there's two questions: is like how many iterators can you have per resource, and then the other is how like do you name the iteration variable, or does the system just refer to it as each? And they're coupled in that if you have multiple, you must require like they have to be named, otherwise, I mean, I guess you could index them or something, but like it's very awkward to have multiple and have them not be named by the user. But when there's only one, you know, if I were to like weigh in briefly, personally, when I'm writing code, I love to say like for singular in plural and then refer to my singular in my loop, and it's super idiomatic. So having that ability to name things is really nice from a readability perspective.
Yeah, I think I'm also in support of letting you name the thing. It seems like we were almost convincing ourselves that we were there before anyway, and it also, if we ever ended up doing the multiples, which I mean, I know we're sort of saying that we're not, but it would be less of a change, right? If you can already name them, then it extends in the future. I do agree with what Jacob said of like, let's not do that to start with, though. Like, if we're going to hedge one direction, like, let's just pick one and just commit to that. But letting you name them seems nice from an ergonomics perspective and also from an extensibility in the future perspective. So it seems like there's maybe not a lot of downside. The other thing that, like, I mean, and we can discuss this more on the proposal. I know it came up already. Was like if it's dot item, dot index, and dot length are sort of like the built-ins on the thing. I mean, I guess if you need the index and well, you probably do, although technically you could zip an integer in if you really wanted. But I don't think we should do that. I think that's ugly. Um, yeah, I think it's some debate about, okay, what exactly are the things that hang off of this? Like, is it dot item and dot index?
So I talk about those variables, I think. So there is dot item, and then dot index, and then key value and length. So 5 of them. So index is going to be useful if you're dealing with a collection of, or like if your iterator is an array, and key and value is going to be useful if your iterator is a map.
And we'll do static analysis on this to basically reject you if you try to use one of the wrong ones in the wrong context.
Yes, absolutely. That's the whole idea of it. Is that like we're gonna like basically introspect all the cell beforehand and tell you whether things are going to work in advance or not. How about we do this? How about I think there's a lot of feedback around this script, and it needs one more iteration from my end at least. Like where I go and compile all the feedback and be like, hey, here is what I think the very center of all the opinions is, and I will let people like reiterate again a second time, unless if there are very strong opinions and not going a certain direction, we can go ahead with an implementation.
Sure. I think what you have now is some consensus on the topics you want to talk about, right? I think you also are the author of the CREP, so I think you have some authorship, right, of what you want to push in the end. And if people don't like it, then we will have to vote them off in the voting process of the CREP, and it should not get accepted. So I like my reason that I'm saying this explicitly is because I think we can discuss on ages for here, and it's like designing a programming language almost, right? You will never get everyone satisfied.
I think the advantage here is that we're not actually talking about semantics, we're talking about syntax. Almost all the comments here, I think once we collapsed it down to only one loop. And so it actually doesn't really matter in terms of form. So I think we should, treat the timing on this appropriately.
Yeah, I guess TLDR is let's not make your life too hard on this one, right? We will get some form of it in some way, shape, or form. Matt, I think it would be very cool if you could iterate on it again after Amin gave his workaround on this. Same for Alice, I think, right? And then everyone else, of course, is also welcome, but I think you were the most active now on the CREP, so I think let's try to get that in together, and then we will find a common ground.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like I think if we can solve, or if we've already concluded on the multiple collections versus one collection and sort of the cell stuff, that all the rest of like, okay, let the user name it. There's only one of them. Like, okay, what else is there to decide? Like at that point, we've sort of decided the important stuff, and I'm basically happy with what we've discussed here, honestly, if those are the conclusions. So maybe we just need to write them up or get Amin to write them up in the doc and have a final pass, and then we can, do it.
Live happily ever after. Yeah, okay.
Then we can go work on revisions.
Oh God.
I mean, as Amin said, like if we got it wrong, like it's out, like we can fix it up, and we realize that this cell thing is ugly and we want to support multiple collections. Like we could make a change if we needed to, in the future. So.
For completeness sake, I will say we had one note in here in the sections that we have not talked yet about, which is the ABAC isolation in RGDs. I don't actually know who it was from because it was an anonymous user, but I just want to give a quick ask if it's okay if we discuss that next session as well, because I think
Yes,
we're almost out of time.
Yeah, that was me. Happy to discuss another time, and I can also raise an issue about it.
Thanks so much. I'm sorry that we couldn't really get it
No,
discussed.
not at all. All good. Thank you.
All right. Maybe for next time, if you guys want to prep something, my ask for you is if you want to like shift around the milestones, because today it was very unclear what goes into which milestone now, especially when we look into not next version, which is collections. I think I got that part and I have that written down, but everything else is kind of still in flux. So if you have very concrete ideas or wishes, I think we should talk about these next time in the community call or just on Slack.
Yeah, the other thing that we had just.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Amin.
No, go.
Okay, the other thing we had discussed, like between Amin and I, was um, sort of trying to draw the line in the sand for 1.0, like what is a must for 1.0. And I was doing some of that, although I honestly didn't finish. But that's another thing that I think would be interesting to get community feedback on is like if we can dump the items that we feel like we need to solve this before 1.0 in 1.0, we can always pull them back into like an actual named release when we figure out where they're going to go. But right now, like it's actually a little bit nebulous. Like what is a must for 1.0 and what is sort of something that we could do afterwards. And so trying to figure that out would be great. It's not easy because you sort of have to think about, well, is this going to be breaking? You know, is how critical is this? So community input on that would be super awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm assuming you created a milestone, or what are you preparing right now? Maybe so that we can take a look at that already, because you mentioned you were already in the works of that.
Yeah, so the one that like I know we said, and I think there's an item in 1.0 already for it, is versioning and rollouts. There's like 4 or 5 or 6 issues. And so I was trying to sort of collate them all together and then maybe make like a mega issue that links to all of them. And so I'll do that maybe today before I leave for the holidays. But I think that there's probably some other topics like that too that aren't maybe as top of mind as the versioning and rollout stuff that also is like that's clearly a must for 1.0. Like we can't go 1.0 without answering those questions. So if there's any other topics like that that you're not seeing in the 1.0 milestone or in any of the, you know, the other ones, but maybe there is an issue filed for it, maybe we can bring it up in the next community call as like going through, okay, hey, this issue's here. We're not talking about it, but like it seems like we have to do this.
But I added a call for action, and I think I will also quickly post meeting, adjust the next meeting in the minutes already so that we can take a look at that next time already by default. All right. I mean, any closing words?
All right, folks. I think we're 2 minutes of our time. So with that, I will say thank you, everyone. It was a nice session like always, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you all.
Cheerio.